Welcome to A Magical Life, Health, Wealth and Weight Loss. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, lead practitioner at Holistic Natural Health Australia and #1 best-selling author. In this podcast, I aim to give you practical tips on how to accelerate and sustain your health, increase your financial, spiritual and emotional wealth, and to look at something that haunts many of us needlessly, weight loss. Now, sit back and enjoy, because it is time for you to create and truly discover a magical life. Welcome back to A Magical Life. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, and today Chris Odegaard joins us, and he is the prolific investor. Chris is an average guy who had a white-collar job in the corporate world and followed the only thing he knew for decades, conventional wisdom and conventional investments. This worked relatively well until 2009, when he experienced an illiquidity event where he lost 55% of his assets and thousands of dollars per month in cash flow. Then Chris read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and his mind was open to a different type of investing in real assets and private deals, mostly insulated from the volatility, risk and taxation of the stock market. In just 9 years, Chris recouped the 55% he had lost and multiplied it many times over, and now shares his experience and knowledge with you through his book, Get Off Your $, and Manage Your Money, Why You Need Alternative Investments, and his alternative investment blog at theprolificinvestor.net. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Magic. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so I ask everyone the same 3 questions, and everyone gives me different answers. And coming from a finance background, I'm really excited about yours. So here comes the first one, and that is, what can your expertise do to accelerate health, not just physical, but also emotional and spiritual health?
Well, it's funny because people all around the world have different ideas about money, and some people say money is evil. And the truth is, money is just a tool. And I heard somebody say that money can't buy you happiness, and the rebuttal to that was, well, neither can poverty. And the truth is that when people have enough money to, cover their basic needs and a little extra, everything in their life becomes easier. When you're not worried about how you're going to pay the mortgage or the rent or the car payment or the babysitter, you have the time to go exercise. Your mind isn't consumed with, where that next dollar is going to come from. So it's really at the top of the list, I kind of think, in terms of importance, because it makes everything else in life easier.
Well, it does. I mean, when you're not stressing about money, you're not stressing as much. And of course, stress affects your health. So definitely. Now, what are your top 3 tips to creating wealth? Not just the financial, but also the personal and emotional wealth.
Well, looking at it in a broad picture, and I can't claim this as my own, but I can't quote the source either. But something I heard one time that really stuck with me is that everyone should have 3 hobbies. And one is something that exercises your creativity, and the other one is something that keeps you physically fit, and the other one is something that makes you money. And when you think of all those 3 things put together, that really goes well for a well-rounded life. And so I can think, in my life, I actually enjoy making money. So that's just one of my habits, how I do it through alternative investing. And my creativity is through writing and, the educational stuff I do, as well as music. And I just happen to be one of those weird person who likes to go to the gym. So it's kind of like, mind, body, and I guess finances all wrapped in there.
I love that. All right. Our final standard question is around weight. Many people battle with their weight. So have you ever battled with yours? And if so, how did you win that war? And what can you offer the listeners who may be battling with their weight, maybe with their finances as well?
I don't know. I think for most people, to varying degrees, your weight, healthy eating and exercise habits are just a continual battle. They've been a continual battle of mine my whole life, and I have tried different things to get down to my ideal weight. And what I found that most of the time is that they work for a while, but they're never sustainable. And so now I'm doing a little bit of a different program, and it's a lot about education. What are the right things to eat? And as my doctor described it, he said, "Look, Chris, this is going to be at a glacial pace." And so while I'm a little frustrated at the glacial pace, I see the scale and I don't see any movement, and I don't see much change in percentage of body fat. But what I do see is I can see that my body's changing, it's getting better, and my clothes are looking better and fitting. And so there is a change going on, but it's not manifesting itself in the traditional measures. My body composition is changing, even though standing on the scale every day doesn't really tell me much. So I think patience is really key, and it's kind of like exercise. What's the best exercise you should do? It's the one that you're going to do consistently. And the same thing as whatever weight loss program is the one that you're going to be able to do consistently, is going to keep the weight off consistently.
Great. So we've covered it a little bit here, and now I want to open the floor to you, Chris. What is it that you feel the listeners need to hear? Let's start with, you lost 55% of your assets. How was the comeback from that? Like, what did that look like?
When couples get divorced, it's difficult on everybody. Everybody suffers. Nobody really comes out a winner on that. So when you lose that kind of sum of money, there are a couple traditional ways that people think about overcoming that. One is, well, now I have to work longer so I can save more, or I have to work longer so I don't need as much money because I won't be in retirement as long. Or I have to, if I do retire, when I thought I was, I'm just going to live a much more diminished kind of lifestyle. And that's kind of the scarcity mentality. And the abundance mentality is, well, what if I could make all that up? How do I do that? And so instead of just deciding that, well, I have lost 55% and now I'm just going to live like a pauper instead of a king, a couple things happened to me, mentioned in my introduction. A friend recommended that I get this book, which was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I did. And that was the launching point to investing in a different way that is just much more profitable. And it wasn't a straight line, it was one step forward, two steps back, one to the left, one to the right. I can't say it was a smooth path, but it certainly got me there. And to come out of that in less than 10 years and quit my corporate job and never have to work again was really satisfying. And I guess the big key is there's this whole other world of investing that most people don't know anything about.
So how do people find that alternative investment route?
Yeah, so it's a funny thing, because if you think of everybody that you associate with and work with and your family, they're all investing in the stock market through their 401k or their superannuation. I can't even say it. I'll just call it through their super, and that's all they know, because that's all they've ever seen. And then somebody comes around and says, hey, you shouldn't, there's a better place. So unless you come across somebody like me or one of my colleagues, you might never know this. So basically you have to start searching out alternative investments and books. And I mean, it's a real education process. You have to start reading the right books. You have to listen to the right podcasts and attending different classes and conventions. And this all doesn't happen at one time. And at my website, I have a whole list of the resources that I use that have gotten me started and I continue to use today to further my knowledge.
Okay, so a very common financial situation post-divorce, especially for women, and that is starting again from scratch with nothing, maybe in a rental home, maybe with all the bills of the kids and the whatever. How do they get restarted? How do they start climbing their way back into assets?
Yeah. It's the education process. You read a book like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you read my book, and you go, oh, there's the stock market, and then there's all these other investments. And unfortunately, one reason the traditional method is so popular is because it's so easy. You put your money in some fund managed by somebody and you never think about it again. But we get in life, the results are proportionate to the input. And so those results are very mediocre. And so by, increasing your knowledge, you find out about this whole other world of real estate and ATM machines and self-storage facilities and shopping malls and, all these other types of things that there are ways that people can, relatively easy get involved in those without having to be, a multimillionaire who could just go out and buy one of these things by yourself. So it's a huge education process.
Okay, so we've covered how to restart. We've covered the alternative investments. Now, here in Australia, there's a war on cash. I do want to touch on this because we spoke about it off air. There's definitely a war on cash. We know the old adage, cash is king. Many people seem to be going along with this change in the financial structure that cash should no longer be used. It should all be digital. What are the dangers of that, not only in the short term, but in long term with investing?
So I have to say that this is not my strongest suit here, but I'll tell you what some of my thoughts are is, so when you go to this digital currency, first of all, you lose all privacy because they know exactly what you're spending it on and where it's going. And in the United States and probably some other countries during the pandemic, the government just said, here's money. And this was kind of the first time there'd ever been any kind of stimulus like that, where they just put money in people's pockets. And that's okay. They send you a check and you spend it the way you want. With a digital currency, there could be time limitations. Because think of the purpose of the money. The government wants to stimulate the economy. So here, I'm going to give you a bunch of money, but I'm going to put a timer on it. So if you don't use it by this particular time, it's going to vaporize, and you can only use it for certain types of transactions. So now you've got the government putting an expiration date on your money and telling you how you can spend it. It's like your supers and our 401ks that have all these restrictions on them. We don't want that stuff. We want less of that stuff, right?
I agree totally. So, okay, the landscape of finance is changing. The landscape of spending and investing is changing. How can people keep hold of what they've got and grow it? Just some really simple things that they can do today.
Okay. So I guess, this whole thing about cash is king. So there's a little bit of truth to that, and there's something that's not true about that. So there's a certain amount of cash that you have because you're going to spend, and there's a certain amount of cash that you're saving. Well, inflation is really high. Let's just say it's 10%. So if you have $100 in the bank account and you're not getting any interest on it, next year it's worth $90. So if you hang on to cash and it's not being invested at a rate that is higher than inflation, you're losing your buying power over time. So the only time you should hold on to cash is hopefully a very short time between your next investment. But in terms of just some things that people can do, number one is be the best at what you do, whatever your job is, because the only money that people have to invest is the money that's above and beyond their daily expenses. So you need to be the best at your job so that if your expenses are $5,000 a month and you make $10,000 a month, you've got an extra $5,000 a month to invest. So you need to be the best at what you do. You need to make your spouse or significant other a priority, because this whole conversation started with, okay, well, what happens when you split up? Everybody takes a big financial hit. That's probably the biggest, a divorce or something like that, other than bankruptcy, is probably the biggest detriment to your finances of anything else. And, you need to maintain good credit, because if you're doing it right, you don't only want to use your money to invest, but you want to be able to go out and borrow and use smart debt to invest in the right types of things. So you not only have your money to invest, but you have the banks to invest as well. So there's a handful of things.
Terrific. Now, we love freebies here. What can you offer the listeners, and where can they find it?
Well, if the listeners want to go to my website at theprolificinvestor.net, and they can schedule a free virtual coffee with me, 30 minutes long. There's a schedule link you can get on my calendar, and I'll be happy to spend 30 minutes or so and chat about this stuff with you.
Terrific. So the website is theprolificinvestor.net. You also can be found on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. And Instagram, Facebook is The Prolific Investor.
I'm on link. You can find me on LinkedIn, but if you go to the website, every way you want to get a hold of me is there. Have a free virtual coffee with Chris, as well as there's a link to the book. Get off your $$ and manage your money. I never know how to say the title. I have to wait till the host tells me what's allowed.
And that's what I said. So, thank you very much, Chris. This has been a heck of a lot of fun. So everyone go and visit Chris at theprolificinvestor.net. Thank you so much for your time, Chris.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No problems. And listeners, thank you for your time. For now, go forth and create your magical life. Thanks for listening today. Please subscribe to hear future episodes, leave a review, and share this podcast. Drop us a line at A Magical Life Podcast on Facebook and let me know what you would like to know more about. You can find us on Instagram at Holistic Natural Health, that's holistic with a W, or at www.holisticnaturalhealth.com.au. That's where you'll access all sorts of articles, freebies, and more.